Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times Dominion's Edge Asterisk. The massive ship floated in the darkness of space, like a metal mountain. Through the large windows, he could see dozens of other ships in his fleet. Each one was bigger than most buildings on the planets they visited. The holographic display in front of him showed a list of worlds. These were the next targets for the hegemony's expansion. His job was simple: find planets with useful resources and weak defenses. Take them over. Move the people to work camps. Strip the planets bare. "Sir, we have the new target assignments," said Lieutenant Vexel, his second in command. The alien's forearms moved quickly over the control panel. Data flowed across the screens in flowing script that looked like water. Zethkar looked at the list. Most of the planets were the usual type: desert worlds with small mining colonies, gas giants with floating cities, ocean planets with underwater civilizations that barely knew fire existed. Then one entry caught his eye. Target designation 7739C. The local name was Earth. "Show me the intelligence report on this one," Zethkar ordered. The screen changed to show a blue and green planet. It looked almost pretty, which was unusual. Most planets they conquered were brown or gray from industry. This one still had clean oceans and white clouds. "Interesting," he said. "What do we know about them?" Vexel pulled up more data. "Class 3 civilization, sir. They have basic space travel, but only in their local system. No faster than light technology. They still use chemical rockets like children playing with fireworks." Zethkar laughed. Chemical rockets. He remembered when his own people used such primitive things, back when they were still learning to leave their homeworld. That was over 3,000 years ago. "What about their military?" he asked. "Very basic, sir. They have nuclear weapons, but nothing that could threaten our ships. Their largest spacecraft is smaller than our shuttle bays. They do not even have energy shields." The commander studied the data more carefully. The humans had only recently put small stations around their planet. Their longest space missions lasted a few months. They had never been to another star system. Population: about 8 billion spread across the planet's surface. They live in separate nations that often fight each other. No unified government. No space-based defenses. R. Zethkar nodded. This was typical for primitive worlds. They spent so much time fighting among themselves that they never prepared for real threats from outside. "Resources? Excellent, sir. Large deposits of rare metals. Vast oceans full of minerals. The planet's gravity and atmosphere make it perfect for agricultural colonies. The humans have barely touched their deep ocean resources." The commander smiled. This would be an easy victory. The humans were so weak that he wondered why they had been marked as a priority target at all. Usually, worlds this primitive were left alone until later expansion phases. "Sir, there is one strange thing," Vexel said. "What is it?" "The planet has some unusual energy readings. Our long-range sensors detect some underground structures that do not match human technology. The readings are very faint, though. Probably just mineral deposits affecting the scans." Zethkar waved his hand dismissively. "Sensor ghosts. It happens with planets that have heavy metal cores. What force allocation do you recommend?" Vexel checked his data again. "For a Class 3 civilization with no space defenses? 3 destroyer squadrons should be more than enough, sir. Maybe even too much." The commander agreed. 3 destroyer squadrons meant 36 ships. Each destroyer could level a human city in minutes. The humans probably had no idea what real space warfare looked like. "Very well. Assign the 7th, 12th, and 19th destroyer squadrons. Standard conquest protocol. Give them the usual 72-hour deadline for surrender. If they refuse, begin the usual bombardment of military targets." "Yes, sir. What about their population centers?" "Avoid the major cities until they surrender. We need workers for the mining operations. But make sure they understand we are serious. Destroy a few military bases to show our power." Zethkar turned back to the window. In a few weeks, Earth would be another conquered world. The humans would join the millions of other species working in hegemony mines and factories. Their planet would be stripped of everything valuable. It was not personal. The hegemony needed resources to maintain their vast empire. Weak civilizations existed to serve stronger ones. This was the natural order of the galaxy. Send the orders, he commanded, and make sure intelligence keeps monitoring their communications. I want to know if they try anything stupid. Of course, sir, though I doubt they have anything that could surprise us. The transmission went out immediately. Across hegemony space, ship commanders received their orders. The 7th, 12th, and 19th destroyer squadrons began preparing for departure. Crews loaded supplies and checked weapon systems. Earth had been marked. Target designation 7739C would soon discover what happened when primitive worlds attracted the attention of the hegemony. Back on Earth, human astronomers had no idea that their planet had just been condemned. They continued their daily work, studying stars and planets through telescopes. Some of them were excited about new space missions planned for the next decade. None of them knew that alien ships were already warming up their engines for the journey to Sol System. None of them suspected that in a few weeks, everything would change forever. The hegemony had made this calculation thousands of times before. A primitive world with useful resources and no real defenses. The outcome was always the same: surrender, conquest, and integration into the empire. What could possibly go wrong with such a simple plan? Commander Zethkar returned to reviewing other targets on his list. Earth was already forgotten. Just another routine operation. He had more important things to think about. The war in the Outer Rim needed attention. Supply lines to the mining worlds needed protection. He had no way of knowing that this routine conquest would change everything. That Earth held secrets no other world possessed. That humanity was about to turn the galaxy upside down with a single message. But that was still weeks away. For now, the hegemony machine moved forward, as it always had. Confident in its power and certain of victory, Admiral Sarah Chen had been having coffee when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the command center of the UES Endeavour, humanity's most advanced warship. The ship was not much compared to what science fiction movies showed, but it was the best Earth could build. It had fusion engines, particle beam weapons, and armor that could stop most meteorites. "What's happening?" she asked as she entered the bridge. "Ma'am, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system," reported Lieutenant Martinez. His voice was shaking. 36 vessels. They're huge, Admiral. Each one is at least 2 kilometers long. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Humanity had been watching space for decades, hoping for first contact with aliens. But they had always hoped the aliens would be friendly. Or at least smaller. "Are they responding to our signals?" "Yes, ma'am. But you're not going to like what they're saying." The main screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared. It looked like a cross between a lizard and a shark, with 4 eyes and teeth that were definitely made for eating meat. When it spoke, the universal translator that Earth scientists had built from old radio telescope data struggled to keep up. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet. You are the species called humans. Your planet has been designated for integration into the Hegemony Empire." Sarah stepped forward. She had trained for this moment her whole career, but her hands were still shaking. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force. Welcome to our system. We would like to establish peaceful diplomatic relations." Zethkar's laugh sounded like grinding metal. "There are no negotiations. I will explain your situation once. Listen carefully." The alien's image became larger on the screen. Behind him, Sarah could see the bridge of his ship. It was massive, with dozens of aliens working at stations. The technology looked thousands of years ahead of anything humans had built. "Your species will submit to hegemony authority. You will surrender all weapons and military vessels. Your governments will dissolve and accept hegemony leadership. Your population will be relocated to designated work facilities." Sarah felt her heart pounding. "And if we refuse? Then we will demonstrate why refusal is not wise." Your cities will be bombed until you understand. Your military will be destroyed. Your people will submit anyway, but with far fewer survivors. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment. "Orders, Admiral?" asked Martinez. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were arranged in perfect formation at the edge of the solar system. Each one showed energy readings that made Earth's most powerful weapons look like toys. "Get me the president, and contact all other world leaders. Emergency session in 1 hour." "Ma'am, what do we tell them?" Sarah stared at the screen where the alien commander had been. "Tell them that humanity just learned we are not alone in the universe, and the neighbors are not friendly." Within minutes, communication channels around Earth were buzzing with activity. Military commanders compared notes. Scientists studied the alien transmissions. Politicians argued about what to do. In bunkers deep under major cities, emergency sessions began. The President of the Americas sat at a table with leaders from Europe, Asia, and Africa. For once, their usual disagreements seemed very small. "How long do we have?" asked President Martinez. "The aliens gave us 72 hours to surrender," Sarah reported through video link from her ship. "That's about 3 days. What are our options?" asked the Prime Minister of the European Union. "Not good," Sarah admitted. "Their ships are larger and more advanced than anything we have. Our best weapons might scratch their paint." "Maybe." "Oh, so we surrender?" asked the chairman of the Asian Federation. "Some of our people think we should," said President Martinez. "Save as many lives as possible. Hope they treat prisoners well." "And the other option?" asked the African Council representative. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "We fight. Probably die. But at least we die as free humans." The debate continued for hours. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. Others demanded that humanity fight to the last person. A few suggested trying to negotiate for better terms. But deep in a research station in Antarctica, Dr. Elena Vasquez was not thinking about surrender or fighting. She was thinking about the ruins. Elena had been working at the Xenoarchaeological Research Station for 5 years. The station was built around ancient structures that had been found under the ice. Structures that were definitely not human. Most people did not know about the ruins. The discovery had been classified by all major governments. The technology found there was so advanced that human scientists could barely understand it, but they had learned enough to build better computers, better engines, and better weapons. They had also learned something else. The ruins contained vast archives of information about other civilizations. Dead civilizations that had once ruled the galaxy. Elena stared at her computer screen. The alien transmission had been analyzed by the station's computers. The language patterns matched entries in the ancient archives. These hegemony aliens were not unknown. She opened classified files that only a dozen people on Earth were allowed to see. Files about the Void Runners. Files about the Titan War. Files about something called the Devourers. As she read, Elena realized something that made her blood turn cold. The hegemony were not conquerors. They were refugees. They were running from something so terrible that they had been fleeing across the galaxy for thousands of years. And now they had found Earth. The one planet in the galaxy that might know their secrets. Elena reached for her communication device. She had to contact her superiors immediately. Earth was not defenseless after all. They had something more powerful than weapons. They had knowledge. And knowledge, Elena realized, could be the most dangerous weapon of all. The alien fleet continued moving closer to Earth. Their sensors showed a primitive planet with basic defenses. Their computers calculated an easy victory within days. They had no idea that humanity had been studying the remains of the galaxy's greatest civilization. They had no idea that their darkest secrets were stored in archives under Antarctic ice. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The countdown to humanity's deadline began. 72 hours to surrender or die. But Elena was working on a third option that would change everything. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes were red from staring at computer screens. But she could not stop now. In less than 2 days, The aliens would attack if humanity did not surrender. But Elena had found something in the archives, something that changed everything. The research station in Antarctica was quiet, except for the humming of computers. Most of her team had been evacuated when the alien ships arrived. Only Elena and a few essential staff remained, working desperately to unlock the ancient secrets. Dr. Vasquez called her assistant, Marcus. The translation software has finished processing the hegemony language patterns. We can now understand their full communication protocols. The full communication protocols. Elena nodded without looking up from her screen. She was deep in a file about something called the Great Retreat. According to the archives, 10,000 years ago, a massive fleet had fled across the galaxy. They were running from entities called the Devourers. The descriptions made Elena's skin crawl. The Devourers were not from this galaxy. They came from the darkness between stars, consuming entire civilizations. They did not just destroy planets. They consumed the very essence of life itself. Marcus, bring up the section about the Titan War, she said. New files appeared on her screen. The Titan War had been the galaxy's last desperate attempt to stop the Devourers. Ancient civilizations had built massive weapons that could destroy solar systems. They had fought for centuries, using technology that made current alien ships look primitive. They had lost. And the Void Runners? Elena asked. Here, Dr. Vasquez. They were the survivors who escaped to other galaxies. The archives say they were led by a species called the Hegemony. Elena sat back in her chair. It all made sense now. The Hegemony were not evil conquerors. They were the descendants of refugees who had fled the destruction of their home galaxy. For thousands of years, they had been building a new empire, preparing for the day when the Devourers might follow them. But that was not the most important discovery. Marcus, show me the file on the architects. The architects had been the galaxy's most advanced civilization. They had built the research facility that now lay buried under Antarctic ice. They had also built something else, a quantum communication network that could send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. And according to the archives, parts of that network were still active. Elena stood up suddenly. I need access to the quantum transmitter. Now, Dr. Vasquez, that equipment is experimental. We've never successfully sent a message more than a few light years. The architects did not build it for short-range communication, Elena said, pulling up technical specifications. They built it to coordinate galaxy-wide defense networks. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's still connected to relay stations across the galaxy. She ran through the corridors of the research station, Marcus following behind her. The quantum transmitter was in the deepest part of the facility, built directly into the architect ruins. It looked like a mixture of human technology and alien crystals that glowed with their own light. Are you going to try to negotiate with them? Marcus asked. Elena shook her head as she began activating the transmitter. I'm going to give them exactly one chance to leave. And if they don't take it, I'm going to destroy their empire. What? How? Elena's fingers moved over the control panel. The ancient alien technology responded to her touch like it had been waiting for thousands of years. By telling the galaxy their greatest secret. The transmitter powered up with a sound like singing crystals. Energy levels climbed far beyond anything human technology could achieve. But the architect systems held steady. Dr. Vasquez, the energy readings are off the charts. Every sensor in the station is going crazy. It's working, Elena whispered. She could feel the quantum field building around the transmitter. The ancient network was waking up after millennia of sleep. She began recording her message. To any hegemony vessel receiving this transmission, you have made a grave error. We know about the Void Runners. We know about the Titan War. We know what you did to the architects. Most importantly, we know what you're running from. End 2000. The transmitter's crystals blazed brighter. Elena could see readouts, showing connection to relay points across the galaxy. The message was not just reaching the alien fleet, it was broadcasting to every inhabited system. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to reveal your location to them. You have 1 hour to begin immediate withdrawal from this system. This is your only warning. She paused, then added, Dr. Elena Vasquez, Xenoarchaeological Research Division. Elena pressed the transmit button. The effect was immediate. Every screen in the research station lit up with confirmation signals. The message was spreading across quantum relays faster than light itself. In seconds, it would reach every corner of the galaxy. Above Earth's atmosphere, the first alien ship to receive the transmission was the Destroyer Times, Razor's Edge Asterisk. Captain Thalves was reviewing attack plans when his communications officer screamed, Sir, priority transmission from the planet. It's on architect frequencies. The bridge fell silent. Every alien on the ship knew that name. The architects had been extinct for thousands of years. No one had used their technology since the Great Retreat. Sir, the message, it mentions the Void Runners and the Devourers. Captain Thalves felt his blood turn to ice. Those were the most classified secrets in hegemony history. Knowledge that could start a galaxy-wide panic. Get me Commander Zethkar immediately. But Zethkar was dealing with his own crisis. The message had reached every ship in his fleet simultaneously. Worse, it was broadcasting on emergency frequencies to every inhabited world in the galaxy. How do they know these things? He demanded. Intelligence said they were primitive. Sir, we're receiving emergency transmissions from High Command. And from our colonies. The entire galaxy is hearing this message. Zethkar stared at the tactical display. A primitive planet was threatening to expose the hegemony's greatest shame to their enemies. If other civilizations learned the truth about why the hegemony had really left their home galaxy. Sir, orders? Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. His empire had been built on the fear that other species had of hegemony strength. If they learned that the hegemony were refugees running from cosmic horror, signal all ships, prepare to withdraw to minimum safe distance. Sir, we're retreating from a primitive planet? We're retreating from whoever helped them access architect technology, Zethkar corrected. And we need answers before this gets worse. Across the galaxy, the message continued spreading. On 1,000 worlds, beings looked up at the stars and wondered what the Devourers were. Intelligence services frantically tried to decode the transmission. Military commanders demanded to know why the mighty hegemony was being threatened by an unknown planet. In her research station, Elena watched the readings with satisfaction. The quantum network was performing better than she had hoped. Her message had reached every major civilization in the galaxy. Now she had to wait and see if the hegemony would be smart enough to listen. The clock was ticking. 1 hour to begin withdrawal, or Elena would reveal everything the galaxy needed to know about the hegemony's true history. She hoped they would be reasonable. But if they were not, she was prepared to bring down their empire with nothing but the truth. The emergency session on Dominus Prime had been going for 6 hours. The High Council chamber, usually a place of calm order, now buzzed with panic and angry voices. High Counselor Vorthak slammed his 4 fists on the metal table. How does a primitive species know about classified hegemony history? How do they even know the Devourers exist? Around the table, the most powerful beings in the galaxy shuffled nervously. Some had lived through the Great Retreat 10,000 years ago. Others had only heard whispered stories about the Titan War. None of them had expected to hear those names again. The transmission came from something called a Xenoarchaeological Research Station, reported Intelligence Director Kethran. Our analysis shows it was sent using architect technology. The room fell silent. Even mentioning the architects was dangerous. They had been the galaxy's greatest civilization until the Devourers came. Their ruins were scattered across 1,000 worlds, but most of their technology remained beyond understanding. Impossible, whispered Counselor Wythara. The architects have been extinct for millennia. Their quantum networks were destroyed in the final battles. Apparently not all of them, Kethran replied grimly. Our technical teams confirm the transmission used genuine architect quantum frequencies. The humans somehow accessed a working node in the old network. High Counselor Vorthak stood up and began pacing. His species had evolved from predators, and stress made him want to hunt something. What exactly do they know? Give me specifics. Too much, Kethran admitted. They mentioned the Void Runners by name. They know about our retreat from the home galaxy. Worst of all, they seem to understand why we left. Another council member, Zaxtel, leaned forward. Do they know about the containment protocols? Unknown. But if they have access to Architect archives, they might know everything. The locations of our hidden bases, our evacuation plans, even the quantum beacons we use to monitor the barrier between galaxies. The High Counselor stopped pacing. And if they broadcast that information, our empire collapses overnight, Kethran said simply. Every species we rule will realize we're not the conquering force we pretend to be. They'll learn we're refugees who barely escaped extinction. Some will try to overthrow us. Others will flee in panic, thinking the Devourers are coming. Across the galaxy, that panic was already starting. On the trading world of Nexus Station, Captain Veloth was loading cargo when his ship's communication system started screaming alerts. The message from Earth was being repeated on every emergency frequency. Devourers, he muttered, reading the transcript. What in the seven hells are Devourers? His first officer, a young female from the Christek Collective, looked pale. My grandmother used to tell stories about monsters from between the stars. She said they ate entire worlds. Those are just old stories to scare children, Veloth said, but his voice was uncertain. Sir, if they're just stories, why is the hegemony fleet retreating from that human planet? Why are emergency broadcasts going out to all hegemony military units? Veloth did not have an answer for that. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. The hegemony had built their empire on the idea that they were the galaxy's strongest civilization. Subject species obeyed because resistance seemed hopeless. Now, suddenly, there were hints that the hegemony might be afraid of something. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, the local hegemony governor was dealing with riots. Word had spread that the mighty hegemony was somehow being threatened by a primitive planet called Earth. Workers were demanding to know what the Devourers were and why their rulers had never mentioned them. Sir, we need reinforcements, the security chief reported. The crowds are getting larger. They want answers we can't give them. Governor Zefok stared out at the burning factories below. What answers could we give them? I don't know what Devourers are either. Those files are classified beyond my security level. Meanwhile, on Earth, Elena was monitoring the chaos her message had created. The quantum network was still active, carrying panicked transmissions from across the galaxy. She could see military units moving, governments falling, and entire star systems going dark as they tried to hide from unknown threats. Dr. Vasquez, Marcus called out. We're receiving a transmission from the hegemony flagship. Elena nodded. She had expected this. Put it through. Commander Zethkar appeared on screen. He looked older than he had a few hours ago. His 4 eyes were bloodshot, and his scales had lost their shine. Dr. Vasquez, I believe we need to discuss terms. There are no terms, Elena replied calmly. You have 15 minutes left to begin withdrawal from our system. After that, I start broadcasting everything we know about your real history. You don't understand what you're threatening to do, Zethkar said desperately. If certain information becomes public, it could cause galaxy-wide panic. Civilizations could destroy themselves in fear. Then you should have thought of that before threatening to destroy my planet. Zethkar was quiet for a moment. What do you want? Complete withdrawal from Sol System, a guarantee that Earth will be left alone, and a proper diplomatic meeting to discuss our future relationship. And in return, your secrets stay secret. For now. The alien commander closed his eyes. Elena could see the weight of 10,000 years of history crushing down on him. The hegemony had built their power on fear and strength. Now, a single human with access to ancient knowledge was bringing it all down. I'll need to contact High Command, he said finally. You have 15 minutes, Elena repeated, and cut the transmission. Back on Dominus Prime, the emergency session had become a shouting match. Some council members wanted to attack Earth immediately and destroy the source of the leaks. Others argued that would only confirm their weakness. A few suggested revealing the truth before someone else did it for them. "We're receiving a transmission from Commander Zethkar," an aide announced. The flagship commander appeared on the main screen, looking defeated. "High Council. The humans are offering a deal. Complete withdrawal in exchange for keeping our history classified." "And if we refuse?" asked High Counselor Vorthak. "They broadcast everything. The real reason for the Great Retreat. The location of our hidden research stations. Possibly even the quantum signatures of the Devourer scouts." The council members looked at each other with growing horror. If the Devourer's quantum signatures became public knowledge, other civilizations might try to contact them, or worse, they might accidentally signal their location to the entities sleeping in the darkness between galaxies. "How much time do we have?" Vorthak asked. 8 minutes, Zethkar replied. The High Counselor looked around the room. His empire, built over thousands of years, was being held hostage by a species that had barely learned to travel between planets. "Signal all units to begin withdrawal," he ordered. "And prepare a diplomatic team. We're going to need to negotiate with these humans very carefully." As news of the hegemony withdrawal spread across the galaxy, the panic began to transform into something else. Curiosity. If a primitive planet could force the mighty hegemony to retreat with just words, what did that say about the true balance of power in the galaxy? On 1,000 worlds, intelligence services began frantically researching everything they could find about Earth and humanity. What they found would surprise them even more than Elena's message had. The humans were not just lucky. They had been sitting on top of the galaxy's greatest archaeological treasure for decades, slowly unlocking secrets that were supposed to stay buried forever. And now the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity's greatest strength, their endless curiosity, met the universe's darkest mysteries. 6 months later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of Deep Space Station Unity. The station had been built at the edge of the Sol system as a neutral meeting ground. Human and hegemony engineers had worked together to create something neither species could have built alone. Elena still could not quite believe how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been a research scientist studying ancient ruins. Now she was humanity's chief ambassador to the galaxy, negotiating treaties that would shape the future of countless civilizations. The conference room was impressive. Holographic displays showed star charts from across the galaxy. The table was made from materials that could withstand energy weapons, in case negotiations went badly. Around it sat representatives from dozens of species. High Counselor Vorthak was there, looking much older than he had during their first video conference. Commander Zethkar sat beside him, his military uniform replaced with diplomatic robes. Representatives from the Christek Collective, the Aquatic Federation, and other major civilizations filled the remaining seats. "Ambassador Vasquez," Vorthak said as she entered. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Elena took her seat across from the hegemony delegation. "Thank you for keeping your word about the withdrawal. Earth remains untouched, as promised." "Yes, well," Vorthak shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps it's time we discuss the real situation." "All of us," Elena nodded. Over the past months, the truth had slowly come out through careful negotiations. But this was the first time all the major galactic powers were meeting together to hear the complete story. "Very well," she said. "Let's start with what humanity discovered in the Architect ruins." She activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing the ancient facility buried under Antarctic ice. The assembled aliens leaned forward with interest. Most had never seen Architect technology in person. 40 years ago, human scientists discovered this facility during geological surveys. It took us decades to understand even basic functions. But gradually, we learned to access their data archives. New images showed vast databases filled with information about extinct civilizations, ancient wars, and technologies beyond current understanding. The architects were historians as well as scientists, Elena continued. They recorded everything that happened in the galaxy, including the true story of the hegemony's origins. Vorthak sighed deeply. "And what did their archives tell you? That you're not conquerors, you're survivors." The room fell silent. Elena brought up new displays, showing the ancient hegemony homeworld before its destruction. 10,000 years ago, The hegemony was a peaceful federation of species in the Andromeda galaxy. You were explorers and scientists, much like what humanity hopes to become. But then you discovered something in the darkness between galaxies. The Devourers, whispered Zethkar. It was the first time Elena had heard him speak the name aloud. Entities of pure entropy, Elena confirmed. They don't just destroy matter and energy. They consume the fundamental forces that hold reality together. When they finish with a galaxy, nothing remains. Not even empty space. She showed recordings from the Architect archives. Images of vast, impossible shapes moving through the void. Entire solar systems simply ceasing to exist as the entities passed through them. Your ancestors tried to fight them. The Titan War lasted for centuries. Super weapons that could destroy stars were built and used. Entire species sacrificed themselves to slow the Devourer advance. And we lost, Vorthak said quietly. Every battle, every desperate stand, every sacrifice. Nothing stopped them. Elena nodded. So your people did the only thing they could. They fled. A massive evacuation fleet brought millions of survivors to this galaxy. You've spent the last 10,000 years building a new civilization while watching the borders, terrified that the Devourers might follow you. Representative Kixara of the Christek Collective spoke up. But why the conquests? Why build an empire through force? Zethkar answered. Because we needed resources. Ships, weapons, technology, personnel. Everything necessary to fight the Devourers if they ever found us. And we needed to keep other species from accidentally signaling our location to them. Every expansion, every conquered world, was preparation for a war we hoped would never come, Vorthak added. We told ourselves we were being pragmatic. Necessary. But over the centuries, you became the very thing you once fled from, Elena finished. Conquerors who destroyed civilizations for their own survival. The hegemony representatives sat in a shamed silence. But that's not the most important discovery we made, Elena continued. She activated new displays, showing technical blueprints and weapon schematics. The architects didn't just record the past, they prepared for the future. Before their extinction, they designed weapons and defense systems specifically to fight entities like the Devourers. Every alien in the room leaned forward. Even the hegemony representatives looked shocked. Impossible, breathed Vorthak. We searched architect ruins for thousands of years, never found anything that could harm the Devourers. Because you were looking in the wrong places, Elena said with a slight smile. The architects hid their most dangerous research on worlds they thought would remain hidden. Worlds like Earth. She showed schematics for devices that seemed to bend space and time. Weapons that could strike at targets in other dimensions. Shields that could protect entire solar systems by folding them out of normal space. These designs are beyond current understanding, Elena admitted. But human scientists have made breakthrough discoveries by combining architect knowledge with our own approaches to physics. We've proven that several of these weapons can be built. And you're willing to share this knowledge? Asked Representative Veltar of the Aquatic Federation. Under the right conditions, Elena replied. Humanity proposes a new kind of alliance. Not conquest or domination, but true cooperation. Every species contributes their strengths. The hegemony provides military experience and industrial capacity. The Christek Collective offers advanced computing power. The Aquatic Federation brings their expertise in dimensional physics. And humanity? Asked Vorthak. We provide what we've always been good at. Curiosity. The willingness to ask dangerous questions and explore forbidden knowledge. We've unlocked more architect secrets in 40 years than the rest of the galaxy managed in millennia. Elena stood and walked to the massive window overlooking space. In the distance, construction ships from dozens of species were working together to build something unprecedented. What you're seeing out there is the first joint research facility, she said. Human archaeologists working with hegemony engineers and Christek computer experts. We're not just building weapons to fight the Devourers. We're building hope. Hope for what? Asked Zethkar. Elena turned back to face the assembled representatives. That we won't have to flee next time. That we won't have to choose between survival and becoming monsters. The Devourers consumed one galaxy and scattered the survivors across the universe. But they've never faced a unified galaxy that was ready for them. You really believe we can fight them? Vorthok asked. I believe we can try. And if we fail, at least we'll fail together, fighting for something worth preserving. Months of careful negotiations followed. Treaties were signed, establishing the Sol Hegemony Alliance. Other species joined one by one, drawn by the promise of both protection and the chance to study architect technology. The galaxy slowly transformed. Worlds that had been strip-mined were restored. Species that had been enslaved became equal partners. The hegemony military, no longer needed for conquest, turned its attention to defense and exploration. And in laboratories built around architect ruins, scientists from dozens of species worked together on humanity's greatest project. Not weapons of destruction, but tools of hope. The Devourers might come someday. The barriers between galaxies were not permanent, but when they arrived, they would find something that had never existed before in their cosmic wanderings, a galaxy that was ready for them. Elena stood in the observation deck of the research station, watching humans and aliens work side by side. Her message 6 months ago had been meant to save Earth. Instead, it had saved something much larger. It had saved the idea that civilizations could choose cooperation over conquest, hope over fear, and unity over survival at any cost. In the depths of space, ancient quantum relays carried new messages across the galaxy. Not threats or ultimatums, but invitations to join something greater than any single species. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not through conquest or superior technology, but by doing what they had always done best. They had asked the right questions. And for once, the universe had provided answers that led to hope instead of despair. The galaxy was no longer just waiting for the end to come, it was preparing to meet whatever came next. With courage, unity, and the accumulated wisdom of species that had learned to see their differences as strengths rather than weaknesses. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient entities stirred in their timeless sleep, unaware that their next target had become something they had never encountered before, a galaxy that was no longer afraid.